best thing.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry. I cannot sleep tonight. I need somebody and always. The six strange
darkness comes
on the one thing every time.
And as I stared, I counted the webs from all the spiders. I forget the lyrics.
Oh, wait, that's the wrong song. You said Fall For You, and I went with Blink-182.
I was just going to ad lib, but, you know, the thing is...
Trusting about tonight that we're not fighting. That's secondhand.
It couldn't be that we have been this way before. I know you don't think that I am trying.
Oh, there it is. I know you're drifting down to the car. Oh, but hold your breath. Because tonight will be the night that I will fall for you over again. Don't let me change my mind. Lywood. That's high. To see another day, I swear it's true. Because a girl like you is impossible to find. Impossible to find. Ladies and gentlemen, Lance Hedrick, welcome to the coffee show. How you doing, Lance? What was my name?
Lance Hedrick.
There it is. You said Hendrick.
I'm Australian. We can't talk properly.
No, everyone says Hendrick. Take the N out of my name.
No, I've been saying Hedrick. A lot of people say, did you say Hendrick? And I've been saying Hedrick. Do you get that a lot?
Oh, I get Hendrick all the time.
See, I'm obviously my name's Kirk, and I think 99.98% of the time I introduce myself to someone, they think it's Kurt. But my diction's good. I say Kirk quite a bit. But welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You're living in Portugal nowadays. Just before we get started, what's it like living in Portugal these days?
Let's see. I was trying to think of a song, and my mind went blank. But it's absolutely wonderful. I love it. Been here about just over 3 years, and it's awesome. I don't know. It's incredible.
And you're in Arkansas before?
I was. Big change.
Yeah, it is massive. But, I mean, the weather's probably awesome where you are. Is it hot all year round in Portugal?
No. I mean, it's hot right now because I'm in my studio and the doors are shut and it's summer and it's cloistered. But, no, it's like 23 outside right now. In the summer, the hottest it gets is maybe 30 Celsius. And then the coldest it gets in winter is maybe 8. So in the south is where it gets crazy hot. North Portugal, it's easy.
All right, well, let's get into some coffee stuff now. So I'll take my lanyard off. So I was doing a bit of research about you and looking on your website, and it said that you were initially, in your early years, you wanted to be a professor in philosophy. So how did that all come about? And then
Yeah, it's a long and convoluted story. What one would call an intellectual history is very boring, but it's very much, but at the same time exciting, just because it has so many twists and turns. But without getting too deep into it, because it's exhausting to talk about, I fell in love with. I was originally doing science. I was studying chemistry and biology, and was kind of in the pre-med route. Then I fell in love with ancient languages and philosophy and comparative literature and mythology and how it affected culture and politics, religion, all these things kind of turned into a soup. And I was really into all of it. And so, yeah, I got super into philosophy when I was about 20 or so. And I was at a point where I was reading like a book every 2 days of traditional philosophy up until I got to, the 1900s. So I got really into a lot of obscure trends in philosophy, I guess. And so, like, for people who enjoy name drops, because I don't feel like explaining all of it, but there was a trend that Slavoj Žižek recognized in like 2003 or so with a book called Puppet and the Dwarf that really intrigued me, listing off philosophers like Alain Badiou and Louis Althusser and Giorgio Agamben and even the playwright Piero Paolo Pasolini and a few others. But It really intrigued me. I started down this path of an interdisciplinary style PhD. I was finishing up my master's while I was in my master's program, I was doing adjunct kind of teaching, like teaching assistant, research assistant, graduate assistant for a couple of professors. One was finishing his PhD at Cambridge, and so I was helping him research. It was pretty boring. It was about John Locke, and I'm not a big fan, but I read the majority of his body of works for that. And the other one was working on ancient language translations. Very weird stuff. But I ended up visiting the UK, where I was going to go to school at Kent, met and spent a few days with the professor under whom I was going to study. And when I came back to the States, I had become so jaded by academia and the real conversations I had with this specific professor that I actually jumped ship and went full-time to coffee and became impoverished for a few years. And what's funny is that even just a couple of years ago, that professor reached out. He's now, I think he's at Yale now, and was asking if I'd want to return to school. And I was like, dude, you're the one who convinced me to leave it. So I was like, I got bad news for you, bud. Ain't no chance.
Well, I find this is an interesting sort of context as to how you do your videos, because obviously a lot of your stuff is very, you clearly have a good understanding of science, and you were explaining just then that you started with science. My girlfriend studies dentistry, and before she did that, she studied biomedical sciences at the University of Toronto or something like that. And I feel like, you know how you see so much on the internet these days, like people say, oh, school's crap, you should learn how to do your taxes, or, you should learn how to, start a business in school. And it's like, yeah, but like, I think science is important and math is important. Like I actually didn't study math and science as strongly as I should have in high school, but now I just regret it all the time because it's so much harder for me to learn now. So it's like,
sure.
Moral of the story, kids, if you're in high school and you're doing math, chemistry, and you think all your problems will be solved by opening up an e-commerce store, they won't.
I will say, I think the majority of the math and science that I use now is still just things I took from high school. In the sense that I didn't take, like my junior and senior year, I'd stopped taking sciences mostly altogether. I took like one or two. I took like A&P or something, and then I took just something I was interested in because we had some intriguing professors there at the school I went to. And but the majority of chemistry, math, and stuff, honestly, a lot of it was just kind of repeated my first 2 years of college. And then I know with organic chemistry, I actually tutored some classmates on that. But all of that, honestly, I took AP chemistry in high school, and I for organic chem 1, I knew already most everything in it. In fact, I tutored a friend who took it his first semester freshman year, and I hadn't even taken it. So a lot like the call here is, don't listen to this as you must go to college just to know math and science. It's pay attention in high school and you should be good. Unless you want to specialize in those fields.
Well, that I totally agree with, because I studied journalism at university, and by the time I finished from the time that I started, the degree was completely outdated. And I just feel like there's so many college degrees now that I think the society needs to reflect their reassess their value, because kids these days, if they sign up to college, it's more expensive than ever. They effectively get it on a Zoom call, so it's like, I mean, that's not to demonize all university degrees. Like, obviously, again, my girlfriend's studying dentistry. You can't really learn that on the internet.
No.
So, but yeah, I'm with you. I feel like it's, just study, just focus in high school, and then you'll be able to make. You'll be able to make fully sick pour-overs, man.
Oh, heck yeah, dude. Well, it's just the idea of, like growing up, I was taught essentially I'll fail in life without college, but I have two siblings and neither of them use their college degree either. My sister dropped out of nursing school and she's a very successful cosmetologist in Nashville. And then my brother became a chef and he did 7 years of college. He kept switching majors because he was so stressed. He needed a degree, 7 years of college, no degree, and is a chef. So it's like all three of my parents' kids, we don't use our degrees at all. Mine means nothing, literally. My undergrad degree literally means nothing. It was I was going to do an interdisciplinary, like we had an honors college and I could create my own degree. And so I created one called philosophical linguistics, which doesn't even mean anything. But then I decided I wanted to keep taking other random classes that wouldn't fit with that. And I ended up just being general studies. And I had like 80 hours of a specific topic. I had like 40 hours of science. I had like 15 hours of some other random something. So literally, I could not get a job with that degree because it means nothing.
Yeah, but it's made you such a good coffee podcast who can sing things like "Fall for You,"
Uh,
eloquently explain everything that you have already at the beginning of this podcast. So, Lance, I think, everything happens for a reason. But where did coffee come into the sort of mix for you? What was the point where you're like, I'm going to do coffee? Were you making it during university? How did that all start?
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is growing up, I didn't really like coffee. I would force it down on occasion when I was like, if I was traveling, I saw my dad drink black coffee. I would, oh, yeah, I need my black coffee. Never liked it. It was always gross. And I thought it was like meant to be gross. Like it was a stimulant that was a necessary thing for adults and for, men. And my dad was always like, oh, yeah, the darker and sludgier, the better kind of thing. And so I never liked it. And even through college, I really did not like it. I never drank it. I can't remember. And I remember there was like a local coffee house that I ended up getting my first coffee job at where everyone would go because it was kind of the hangout spot in this tiny town of the private institution I went to. And I would always get vanilla chais because I hated coffee.
So did I.
Yeah. I did not like the coffee. So I got these vanilla chais. And then I started my one of my roommates, like my senior year, had a Keurig, and if I was like doing all nighters and I ran out of my 5-hour energies, I would chug some Keurigs, but it wasn't for taste; it was specifically for the caffeine. Then after college, when I was starting graduate school, I wanted to stay in the town of my university because my now wife was finishing up college and I was starting graduate school, and I wanted to stay around her, but my grad school is 2.5 hours away, so I stayed there and I commuted for school 2 to 3 days a week. But I needed to have a job while there. And like a mentor figure of mine at the time highly recommended I work for this local coffee shop because he was like, they have, he's very connected there and they have very flexible hours. Started working there, hated the coffees still. It was commodity coffee, by the way, for people listening. It was not specialty. It was super dark, gross, nasty, in the middle of Arkansas, like wood-fired crap. And I would drink maple lattes. That's the only way I could get down the espresso. But worked there for about 2 years. And when I decided I was going to leave academia, it was about 1.5 years into working there. That was about the time I returned from England. And I actually had 6 hours left of my master's. It was like a 90-hour degree, or 80, 90, I don't know. And I had 6 hours left, and I dropped out with 2 weeks left because I was like, I just knew, I had this crystallizing moment of, I know I'm not going to do this. Like I cannot. Academia is too much. I'm going to be miserable essentially if I do this route. Because what I discovered talking with this idol of a professor I had who had read all of his works, all of his articles, his books. I had spent these wonderful days walking along the beach in Whitstable, England with him. And even with all this beauty and like dream come true type of experience, I walked away with just, this nauseous feeling in my stomach that I was gonna be miserable for my life. So I literally, like 3 days later, I formally withdrew, and I had A's. I had a 4.0 GPA with like 6 hours left, and I pulled out of my master's. I took a road trip to SCA Atlanta, my first ever expo I went to, but I didn't go to the expo actually. I went all the way there because they had a Latte throwdown where the winner got $1,500 and I needed money. So I drove there, and that's my first ever win in a Latte throwdown was in April of 2016 in Atlanta. I drove 9 hours, won $1,500. And that was kind of I made the right call. At the time, that was like unfathomable money. I mean, it's still a ton of money, but it was unfathomable at the time. Like they handed me a wad of $1,500 and I was like, holy shit, and
next stop, Vegas, baby.
Dude. And so when my wife, actually, I think, yeah, we had just been married at that point. We drove back home 9 hours, and I remember thinking, okay, I didn't make a huge mistake. Then we moved to Memphis, and I ended up having to get 3 jobs at cafes, and I was working for a roaster who's underpaying me, and I was under the poverty line with 4 jobs for a couple of years. Developed horrible stress and anxiety conditions, was hospitalized a few times for all of this. We, without planning, had our first child, which added to it all. And by like 2 years, my body was just completely disheveled. Then I started working for Onyx, and we ended up moving to Arkansas, and I've been with them since 2018. So,
wow, I feel like everyone has that moment of like, I don't know, if you want to make it in coffee, I feel like there's always some really hard years that you have to work. Well, maybe that's not the case for everyone, but I definitely went through some times where it's like, geez, I'm working like 60, 70 hours a week. And, thankfully in Australia, the pay is pretty good. But,
Not when I was working. I think I was paid in the US. I was paid when I started $7.25 an hour, and I was only allowed a maximum of 30 hours a week. And then when I moved to Memphis, I was paid $300 a month for one job with that roaster that I did like 30 hours or 40 hours a week with. And then I worked 3 cafe jobs where like one of them I'd work Saturdays and Sundays, 9-hour shifts. It was a French cuisine. And then I worked like pickup shifts at this downtown little spot where I worked on a single group mod bar. And then I would do shifts at just like random places. So there wasn't like a third cafe setting. It was like random. I would just pick up shifts when cafes needed it. And I would train local baristas whenever the shop would want to pay for that. I would go and train them for like $100 or something. And we were still under the official poverty line in the US. And I was working like 80, 90 hours a week or something. It was nuts.
So where did sort of developing that skill set come along to where you are now? And then what I'm really interested to know is, when did you just decide to get into YouTube?
Yeah. So when COVID hit, like I was like, when I moved to Onyx, started working in wholesale, had commission, and was able to build commission. And like, finally I wasn't impoverished, and things were going well. I no longer this is actually a very interesting tidbit. In 2017, I made more money from Latte at Throwdown wins than I made from all of my jobs combined.
What?
Fun fact. Yeah. We were so pinched for money because my wife was pregnant, and we were just freaking out because she was about to start graduate school and she gets pregnant and we weren't expecting it, and yada, yada, yada. Maybe it was 2016 I did it. No, it was 2017. 2015 is when I won my first throwdown. Sorry, it was 2016. I made more money. I can't remember. It was either 16 or 17, either when my child was an infant or when she was pregnant. But we were so pressed for cash, and we got kicked out of an apartment because they didn't allow kids at this apartment complex. And when they saw she was pregnant, they kicked us out. And the only apartment we could find in short time was more expensive we can afford in Memphis. And so anyway, I was just freaking out. So what I started doing is I was, at the time, Barista Guild of America was really active, and they would post whenever throwdowns were across the country. And if I had like this math equation in my head, essentially, if it made sense, if the travel expenses and everything could be negated and I make $250 if I went and won, then I would go to it. I went to like 30 or something throwdowns that year. One of them, I like took a 25-hour trip to San Diego. Like I was there for like 22 hours and flew back because Slayer hosted a throwdown for $5,000. It was an 8-hour throwdown or something, and I won it, flew back. I went to like coffee fests and I won a couple of those. One of them also had a throwdown that lasted 8 hours, so like 4 a.m. and the winner got a Linear Mini. I won that and I sold it to someone for like $4,500. Yes. So I count that towards the winnings. And then, and then like this guy in Toronto, Canada named Bruce Lee, no joke, that's his name, but he's been in coffee forever. He was opening a restaurant with a coffee program, and he was like, what would the prize need to be for you to fly to Toronto? And I looked up flights and I told him, if it's $2,000, I'll come up. And I went up and won that one. So there was one year I won everything, but like, I think I lost 2 competitions that year, and it was 2 of the 3 coffee fests. I think I just won 1 that year. It was crazy. But anyway, for YouTube, that was a sidetrack. I think that's a fun tidbit.
Can I just say before you go on, it's kind of like 8 Mile, Eminem up there on the stage with the rap battle, spaghetti on the jumper,
Oh yeah.
Defeat is not an option. Failure is not an option.
Dude. People hated me because I took it so seriously. I'm not kidding. I hated throwdowns. I did not enjoy going to them because for me, it was survival. And this is why actually I got to a point where I got really mad I felt it irresponsible for people to host throwdowns that had like, for a barista, a kind of life-changing amount of money if they weren't serious about the judging. Because for some people, they're genuinely like, the people putting it on don't realize, because usually they're cafe owners or something that aren't worried about, these tiny paychecks, and then insurance be taken off, and then, all this stuff. Then they put up these massive cash grabs, and people travel in for it, and they're trying their hardest to win this money because they're relying on it. And then it's crappy judging. I get so mad now. I tell people, like, if you're going to put up a $5,000 prize, take 1,000 of that away and hire a very like qualified head judge that can deliberate if there's just a terrible call or something like that. I was horrible at those throwdowns, dude, because I didn't talk to anyone. I had earbuds in, because it was life or death, And
But even in Melbourne right now, there's this lady called Junie. You might have seen her on Instagram, and she's got a kid now, and she just wins everything. She comes here and she just wins all the prize money. She's like so good at latte art, and like, I mean, by now she's probably put an extension on her house. You know, she's won so much. And then
y'all got big prizes down there. Up in the States, it was normally you do like a $5 or $10 buy-in and winner take all. So it was never big sponsored money. Y'all got like $10,000, $8,000.
There's this lady you would know, Jibby Little. So Jibby Little, she won this competition called the Australia's Richest Barista, prize money 35,000 Australian dollars. And you know, I think she started a cafe with some of those proceeds, and then her partner won the year after $25,000. So. No, I like, it doesn't surprise me that you're, and hopefully it was non-taxable income for you, all that. Hopefully they just gave you a lot of cash and boom.
Well, they did, but then I got kind of, I don't know, I got nervous and I did, some of it was check, some was cash, but I don't know. It was, for most of it, I definitely reported. But yeah, for YouTube, once COVID hit, I'd been working at Onyx. I was doing some travel with them. I kind of strayed away from latte art because I like I said, I didn't really even enjoy it. I never practiced it, only when I was on bar shifts. That's a big misconception people have. So there were a couple of times I'd practiced before, like a quote unquote world championship open. But for the most part, it was all bar shifts. But when I moved to Onyx, I didn't really do it anymore. I think I competed at 1 or 2 when I was there because some coworkers wanted to go. But what was I saying? Yeah, so COVID hits and all this commission, all these accounts I had been building up since 2018, they're going out of business or they're shutting down because COVID. And so the majority of what I make is commission. It's kind of like a waiter that works largely on tips in the US, right? They have a really low salary and they work on tips. Well, I was working on commission. All these shops starting to close and I see my wages going down and I am freaking out. I'm like, and then you read that New York Times article about the death of cafes or whatever that, you know, sent a shock into all coffee people, I'm sure. And I was like, this is my livelihood. I'm not qualified to do anything else. What the heck's going on? And then Breville and Williams Sonoma, because they partner, you know, Williams Sonoma sells Breville Sage. They reached out to Onyx and asked if Andrea would want to do some classes for home baristas during COVID, just to, you know, home barista courses. And she asked me if I'd want to join. And so Andrea and I, during COVID, were just teaching random home baristas with whatever machine they had on Zoom. And we did that like 2-3 times a week. We'd come in masked up. I would go to the training lab. She'd go to another room and she would facilitate as I would do the hands-on teaching. Well, I was by myself, but, you know, over Zoom. And we eventually got this sick Zoom setup because we were doing it so often. And Breville and Williams Sonoma were paying us to do this. And it was a very nice, helpful addendum to my income as we were going through COVID. And then by the end of 2020, early 2021, I'd gotten so many reviews from there were a lot of, you know, big publishers and stuff that were attending the class to do write-ups about it, what to do, you know, during COVID. And there were so many incredible things said about what I'd been doing in it and my teaching and all these things and about how lucid I was, how good my teaching style was, all these things. I was like, oh, that's sick. And I'd always been very comfortable in front of people. Like I've never been nervous in front of big crowds, never been nervous in front of a camera. But that really turned things up for me as far as camera presence in general. And so in March of 2022, which I'd done that Breville thing for it was a long time I did it. But in March of 22, I decided, it probably makes sense to, no, it was March of 21. Yeah, March of 21, because I moved to Portugal in 23. So yeah, because it was just after 2020. So March of 2021, I talked with the videographer for Onyx, and I was just like, hey, can I run to your house and just film some of this, these lessons I've been teaching anyway on Zoom, just put it on YouTube. And my original idea was to put it up as free resources for baristas because, at least in the US, knowledge is kind of hidden in an ivory tower kind of thing where you'll get trained at a big shop or chain and they'll make you sign some sort of non-compete clause. You can't take their training elsewhere. You have to work hard to get trained to a certain level. You know, you're working cash register for 6 months before they train you, weird stuff. And I was like, screw all that. I've been lucky and fortunate in my coffee career to have worked with the best, talked with the best, and gotten to do all these things. And so I was like, I'm just going to put this online, free resources. People can use it, and hopefully it'll help baristas. So I posted, my milk steaming video, guide to latte art, espresso extraction 1 and part 2, and that was the start. I just did that in the kitchen of the Onyx videographer. People always thought it was my kitchen. I was like, no, I wish that was my kitchen. That's a sick kitchen. My kitchen's a lot worse than that. But so it started with that. And so it was directly, it was still in the midst of COVID. We were still masking up. It was March 21. But it was on the heels of doing these classes for Breville, Williams-Sonoma.
Well, you've in that case, you've risen really fast. And I feel like, well, obviously you started at an interesting time where viewership of content like that would be at an all-time high. But did it kind of happen like a hockey stick growth for you? Like, was it, you're plodding along and then...
No, it's been pretty consistent the whole time. I've never had a viral video, meaning I've never woken up one day and gone, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, I've still never had that, which is fine. But for instance, Hoffman posted a video on deep frying coffee, and it's like he went to bed one night and the next day it was like 3 million views, which that's and it made the top 10 trending videos on YouTube. And I'm not saying I'd even deserve a top 10 trending, but my point is I've never even had a spike. It's been very consistent. I've had times where it was like maybe a 1.5 times multiplier during a Christmas season or something, just because more people are at home. But for the most part, it's been a pretty steady. If you look at that XY graph of it, it's just been kind of a steady increase. I've not had anything exponential that's ever happened. Right at the beginning, obviously, but that's because I went from not having YouTube to having one, and I already had like 20,000 Instagram followers. So pretty early, I had 10,000 subs. But other than that, it's been pretty consistent.
And what do you put it down to? Like, why do you think people watch or listen to Lance Hedrick? Because a lot of your videos are quite long form for YouTube. Like
they are.
A lot of people would say that, stick to 10 minutes or something like that. But you break it down, you take the time, and you have those long cuts. And if you really and I guess to add my own why I've watched some of your videos, like when I was opening my cafe, I was deciding between what refractometer to buy. And to me, it was really important. A refractometer is a really important tool for my business. And to anyone listening, that's something that calculates the strength of your coffee. And so I watched your video where you broke down refractometers, those long details, like, damn, that influences my choice in a really good way. That really informs me. So as a listener, giving feedback to you, that's my point of view. But do you think other people sort of have that perspective, or do you... What do you think?
It's interesting. There's definitely a huge divide. It's polarized. There are people who get really mad when I do a 40, 50-minute video. There are people who want that every time. They want unfiltered Lance, just rant. And here's my take on it. There are some people who criticize and say I'm doing it for more money, which is the dumbest criticism ever, because look at Mr. Beast. He purposely, and he's talked about this many times, he purposely makes videos like 12 to 14 minutes because the YouTube algorithm has been shown to push that length more than anything. If I was trying to capitalize on my YouTube, I would focus on 12 to 14 minute videos. I would focus on a very intriguing hook. I would focus on storytelling. I don't do that. And the reason is because I'm a terrible YouTuber. I always tell people that, and they're like, no, you're not. You have this many. No, I'm a terrible YouTuber. And I do it once I have extreme ADHD. I'm neurodivergent as hell. And once I lose interest in something, then there's no point in doing it. And so I've got to keep things the way I want them, which sounds counterintuitive to an entertainer. You do what the people want. I kind of don't. I will on occasion, but only if I also want to do it. Right. So I weigh, what people want. And if I find it wanting, I don't do it. Right. So, when it comes to these long videos, I have this almost compulsive need to say everything that I think is important, even if someone else doesn't find it important, someone might. And because a lot of the times I'm doing reviews, that's someone's hard-earned money. I want everything out there. Because some of it is very nuanced, I don't want someone to take a shortcut, skim through, and take what they want from it, which is frustrating because still to this day, I have to pin comments just reiterating what I said 14 times in the video because people go in wanting to hear me say something that I don't actually say. and say, oh, he said this. Absolutely did not. In fact, watch this. Go, like one time I was like, literally go copy paste my script or copy paste the link to this video to ChatGPT and ask it if I said what you think I said. And like, the answer is no. Like, that people are always misunderstanding because they try to skip through, or they think that it's not as nuanced as it is. So, I am a verbose person, as already on this podcast you've seen. I feel, and I think a lot of that's from my training as a teacher, a teaching aide, etc. But I feel the need to repeat important points. I feel the need to explain so that there's no confusion. Though sometimes that arises confusion because people do have issues with attention spans, which, people always want to blame that on this, that, or the other. But, that just takes a little bit extra discipline. Put your phone down for a few minutes and chill.
Well, I guess one thing about you probably experience this being a YouTuber, and I certainly experienced being a podcaster. You kind of have to be okay at times with being disliked, because people, you'll post anything and people will just have these like really nasty comments and messages and stuff like that. And I came into this thinking, well, I'm just going to have to be okay with occasionally being disliked. And, I guess in podcasting, sometimes when I post reels, the more controversial ones that get the sort of conversation started, but also, draw more people to the podcast. But I'm curious, what's your most viewed video today? Do you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, because I've not had anything crazy, it's almost exactly the order I posted them in because they've been up the longest. So my most viewed is my first. My second most viewed is my second video. My third most viewed is my third video. And it's because they've been out the longest. None of them have like really spiked. A few of them, will hit good numbers early-ish, but my best is still the how to steam milk.
That's interesting. I would have thought it's like you pulling apart a grinder or something, but
heck no.
Speaking of which, do you mind if I ask you a few questions about the EK Omnia video that you did?
Sure.
Because I bought an EK Omnia. Well, my like the Axel who supply us. So the way my business operates, I've got my own brand of coffee. I source all the green myself. Axel Coffee Roasters roast it, and they give me other sort of business support. Anyway, so they sourced me a grinder, which I asked for an EK Omnia. I was really excited for it. And since like day one, it's just been an absolute nightmare. I mean, you can't use it for espresso at all.
Nope.
And then they got me to try the Malconic sink, and I sent it back. It's just like, and it's, I don't want to come on here and just be like, I'm not coming here to just throw shade completely at Malconic. I mention this because I hold them to a higher standard than kind of the others. I expect a lot because they've done
a tattoo of them. I hold them to a super high standard.
Yeah, and like because they've done so much for coffee. I've got 4 grind by weight grinders at my cafe because we focus on milk and espresso a lot. But I was really disappointed, and I've heard on the grapevine that they released their products early. They were under significant pressure to just start selling and not focus on delivering good quality. So, what you were saying about retention, sometimes I can't grind like decaf without it being an issue. And sometimes it retains up to 7 grams of coffee. Like, it's just been a nightmare.
Yeah, there's that. And then there's the built-in alignment issue, which still doesn't make sense to me in the slightest. I don't know why you would have a floating axle. It doesn't make any sense at all. Right when that chamber closes, it could be at any angle. It's wild. It's wild. But yeah, I mean, I was pretty condemning in my video. So there's no need to beat a dead horse, but yeah, it was a fail. The UI is incredible. But the rest of the grinder, which is what makes the good coffee, doesn't make good coffee. So, that's the biggest issue. If I could rip off that UI and put it on another grinder, I would, because it's great. But everything else about it, it was underwhelming to say the least.
What do you think right now is one of the best kind of single dose grinders on the market? Because I love using single dose grinders, and what I loved about the EK is you could, whether you were using 10 grams or 500 grams, it kind of still did a great job. But sometimes you think about a Weber EG1, you can't grind batch brew dose in that effectively across a whole day. So if I'm given all the ones that you've tested over the years, what would be like, if you're making a purchase for your cafe, what would you choose?
I hate this because I don't really want to like, give people, I don't want to be like, I don't know, free advertising kind of thing. but,
Yeah, no, fair enough.
But no, I will say one, and it's honestly, it's because I don't think anyone's going to go out and buy it because I said it, because it's a ridiculous price. But I will say right now, I very loudly have said many times, I think commercial grinders are all crap. I don't think anyone's making even a good one except for one, and I think it's way over engineered and overpriced. But the only acceptable commercial grinder, in my opinion, on the market right now is the San Remo X1. That the single dosing option on it can rip through batch and does an incredible job, and the espresso on it and the dose by weight is an incredible feature, though it is over engineered. The whole thing is over engineered. You don't need two hoppers. You could shave off $1,000 if they redesigned it, but it's the only, like, if I were opening a cafe, there's no question I'd have an X1.
Okay, all right. Well, I've never actually tried it. I've never really seen one on a bar in Melbourne, but that's kudos to them. Great little bit of advertising for them, even if we didn't mean it. Can I ask you about coffee machine? What would your coffee machine be if you're opening a cafe?
I really want the Tone machine, from the company Tone.
I haven't seen it.
It's boilerless, so they use essentially that Faro technology inside of it, and you can do some flow control with it, and you can also do cold espresso. It's not been released yet. I think it releases Q2 of next year.
I think I have. Yeah, I think I have seen this. There's someone in Melbourne that has it.
Yeah, that's what I would get, no question.
Tone espresso machine. Yeah, okay. That's interesting. Yeah, there's a guy that does these. There's a cafe in Melbourne now called Morrow Coffee, and they effectively extract all of their espresso cold. So for milk drinks, for long blacks, and everything, it's all cold. And it's like,
I don't like that.
Well, I was very skeptical at first, but then I tried, and I was like, geez, it's not half bad.
I mean, I've done lots of cold espresso. I just don't necessarily love it all the time. Like, it's cool. It's cool, but you're not. There's a lot of flavor compounds you can't get without going a little higher in temperature. So it's with a fast extraction. But no, it's cool though, and it's the tone. It's high time we move away from boilers personally, especially in cafe settings where you're heating so much up, you're reboiling water, it's staying on all the time, it sucks so much energy. But yeah, I really liked it. I got to play with it 2 years ago, I think, when they had a prototype model at one of the expos. I don't remember where, but it's in one of my videos on YouTube. It's super cool. If I were to do like a single group unit, and Tone didn't have a single group one, it would probably be like a Unica Pro. I love that machine. I think it is incredibly well built, like all stainless steel with a volumetric pump that is made in-house with a stepper motor on it, silent as all get out. It makes phenomenal espresso. So, those would probably be the two options there for me.
One thing I was reading about something the other day, and I posted about it because I really fundamentally disagreed with it. And it was this article. I think it'd be an interesting perspective from you on this, but it was an article about whether, basically saying that specialty coffee only really ever talks to itself. We need to make things more accessible to the consumer. And I got to say, I really, like, if you asked me that 5 or 6 years ago, I would have agreed. But now I don't, because I feel like we've got content creators like you, and there's numerous out there. And I feel like a lot of businesses are actually kind of trying to, they see the opportunity with the home barista market because it's expanding. Would you agree? Do you agree with that sentiment? Because I kind of feel like we've never been servicing, the general public better. We can always improve, but I feel like we've never done it more than we have now.
So the situation is that they're saying it's less accessible now?
Well, basically, that specialty coffee only talks to itself, and it's like a little bubble where we only, drink espresso with a pinky up. And
I'll be honest. I think whoever that is has their head up their bum. I think they're looking only at the competitive world, where I do think that happens a lot more often. So I think that's a tiny fraction. Well, I mean, it's proven that especially coffee drinking, has gone up through the roof since COVID. And one very obvious fact of this is what happened with one of the most traditional grinder manufacturers in the world, Malkunig, in 2022 or something. They released their first ever home grinder. La Marzocco, for the first time ever, even though they said they wouldn't, made a cheaper espresso machine. Granted, it's not that cheap, but they still did it because they saw a boom in the home market. There's all these companies that are pivoting to domestic products because the specialty coffee is booming. Not only that, but retailers that were able to survive COVID, their roasteries, they saw massive jumps in their retail sales because people at home were buying their coffee, and they pivoted their marketing to home enthusiasts and are trying to get educational materials to home enthusiasts who are just getting a coffee. So I think that is someone who themselves is insulated in this coffee world where they're likely just shouting at an echo chamber and haven't touched grass in a while.
I love that. All right, before I lose the train of thought, I wanted to just touch on what we were just speaking about, is that what kind of disproves this theory for me is that there's so many home baristas now that actually have a higher level of competency, if you like, in coffee than actually cafe staff do. Like there's home baristas that will come and just chew your ears off for hours because they can make the coffee at home, but they can't really talk about it at home because their wife not or their colleagues or whatever. And so they come into cafes. I deal with this every day, Lance. The home barista's never been more informed than they are right now, and so which kind of makes me disagree heavily with this sentiment that we don't appeal to the home barista market, because they're very much a part of the community now.
Yeah. And I'll say something that's real spicy for you. Real spicy. You can clip this. I've been to genuinely over 1,000 cafes around the world. I don't have an exact number, but once I was trying to count and I got to 1,000 and stopped, but or around 1,000, whatever. It's a ridiculous amount I've been to. And so I've tried coffee from lots of places. One of the big things in this home barista to professional argument is, we taste coffees all the time. We can dial it in better and you can have all the knowledge in the world, but it's not going to beat our experience. I have a much higher percentage of tasty beverages from home enthusiasts that brew for me than I do when I go to cafes. Much higher. I would say it's 30% to 70%.
See, and I don't drink coffee at people's homes much, but I'm not going to disagree with you or challenge you on that, because the level in Australia, for example, there's so many people that do it because it's their job while they're studying at university or something. Whereas these home baristas, they spend their spare time, reading Barista Hustle, watching Lance Hedrick videos, or doing all this other stuff. And so they're really, really well informed, and they're nerds, Lance. They've got all the gear. How do all these people have all this cash is what I want to know. You don't realize how many people have money in society until you look at their home barista setup. It's outrageous. But
well, you also have to consider that some people just prioritize it over other things. You have some people that decide they want to buy a $25,000 car, whereas this home enthusiast might think it's more important to buy a $6,000 car and spend $4,000 on coffee things. So it's more about the exchange of what they're putting their money into. I know people with very low incomes, very, very, very low incomes, who have great coffee setups, but it took them years to acquire, and it's very sensible setups. They will focus on hand grinders and high quality coffee, but they're making way better coffee than almost any cafe or world brewer competitor has ever made me. And it's because they're sourcing the good roasters, and they have a focus on high quality machines where they are cleaning it thoroughly and really, really focusing on getting the most out of the bean because it was expensive for them. I have friends that I follow who make incredible coffee who will reuse filters because filters are too expensive to keep buying. So they will brew their coffee, they clean it under a sink, and they put it on a clothespin to reuse it. So you don't need a ton of money to make incredible coffee. It's allocating your resources wisely. And this is why I always tell people, use the resources or your cash to buy better coffee, because that will give you a bigger boost in your cut profile than anything else. And to go back to that 70-30 number, I think a big reason I have more success with home enthusiasts is because they can choose any roaster they want, and they're able to vet through and get good roasters, whereas the majority of cafes are stuck with the roaster they're partnered with or that roasts in-house. And most roasters in the world I've tried are not very good. So, maybe they're these baristas who have all this experience are being trained on, a lot of times less than ideal coffee. And for my palate, this is also all about my palate. Hello, because it was my subjective experience. But so it's really interesting. But the thing I like to tell people is, when professionals get, offended when I say that, across the board, I think home enthusiasts probably have a higher knowledge about coffee than professionals. The thing is when you're a barista, you are working 8-9 hour shifts, whatever it is. And all day you're tired. You have all these customer interactions. A lot of times you have Karens coming in that make your day horrible. You have a chore list you've got to do. You've got to clean nasty things. Yeah. And there are days you just don't want to drink that much coffee. There are days where it's like, just it's all such a big chore. It's to get a paycheck. And you're thinking about, oh, I can't wait to play COD when I get home. I can't wait to go, play paddle with my friends. I can't wait to go to the bar tonight. And those are things you're thinking about through the day. I've got a hot date tonight, whatever it is. Whereas these home enthusiasts, that Call of Duty, that hot date, that's coffee for them. So they're sitting away, doing data analysis at their 8 to 4 job or whatever. And they're just sitting thinking about, oh my God, I just got a UPS notification that my new, Gesha arrived. I'm so excited to go home and play with it. Ooh, what should I brew it as first? That's what they're daydreaming about. So their free time is filled with elective studying on their passion. Whereas baristas, the majority are not taking their elective free time to study and nerd out and explore and do all these things that make you arguably more knowledgeable and things like that.
And this is why I try and emphasize this to people on the podcast so much, is that like cafes are now competing against home brewers for market share in a way. And the emphasis has never, or the importance of making good quality coffee has never actually been higher than it is right now, because you're competing against these people that can just make it better at home if you don't do a good job.
Well, so my pushback on that is this: I don't think it should be a competition, because the fact of the matter is, it's very rare for you to have a regular that comes in 7 days a week. And sure, you may have one or two, but the majority of your customers are coming maybe once a week, maybe twice a week. You're not really competing with home enthusiasts on that. Home enthusiasts will still do that. What people need to realize, though, is that for the majority of people, what they're making is good. It's good. They're flatty, they're a milk drink, whatever. That's great. Honestly, you don't need to do anything crazy. You're not going to win over a home like someone who's super nerdy about coffee. You're not going to get all of their business. That's never going to happen. Even if you make the best coffee in the world, even if I was a barista there, making the best coffee in the world, because obviously I do, I'm not going to steal 6 days a week of brewing from that person. They may visit once a week. So I don't think the competition necessarily should be with homebrewers. What I foresee the future coming to be is maintaining a high quality milky program, still having, some single origin options or pour over options, whatever it might be for the coffee curious. But for those coffee nerds, the way that you actually profit off that is by having a huge retail selection. I think the most successful cafes I've worked with and that I've consulted before and that I have, experience with are those that will carry 8 to 10 different roasters from around the country, around the world. And they sell, you wouldn't believe how much coffee they sell. There's like one in Hawaii. It's a tiny cafe. 95% of their sales come from retail coffee because they stock 200 bags a day from roasters all over the world. You have that in Amsterdam, the most successful cafe I know there that goes through a crazy amount of drinks. They make even more money from retail because they stock like 7 or 8 roasters. And they just, whenever you have that in a city where there's a high concentration of coffee nerds, they would much prefer to go buy it local than pay shipping costs or duties for international. And so I think what people are overlooking, even roasters can feature other roasters. I think that's a cool concept some people do. And you are going to be able to get back that business from home brewers because they need coffee. You need money. You can import and get a wholesale price and still make money on something they'd pay more for if they ordered it online. So I think that's kind of the next stage, is not necessarily competing with the small minority of home enthusiasts, but to complement them by getting them what they need, having filters on the shelf, having some kettles on the shelf, things that they need that they'd order from Amazon, or they could support their local cafe. So the issue now is people are always out of retail, or it's just their roasts, or they just have 3 different options because they don't want to serve another roaster and they're low on green. I think that's a mistake. I think people should be, if they're in a well-located area, foot traffic, whatever, they should be stocking hella retail and letting the home enthusiasts go wild on selections from all over the world.
And I really want to do this myself one day, so I'm probably giving away the idea so that someone else can have it right now. But in the name of good podcasting, I don't understand why some of these distributors in countries don't just set up a retail store where a customer, for example, say I'm in Melbourne CBD, and if there was one of these big coffee gear suppliers that operates entirely online, it would be super fascinating for them to set up a shop in Melbourne where literally people can go and sample all of their gear. And it's not a coffee shop where they sell cups of coffee, but you can go and make a coffee and give that experience. Like, yes, a
So
lot of
that
people buy stuff online, but I think there would be so many people that would go there, get the feeling, get the breakdown, not like, still have to watch a Lance Hedrick video, but, get
no,
like,
there's a guy in Paris that's doing that, and I've seen this idea pop up a lot. But the one I've seen it actually in practice is there's a cafe called Bonjour Jacob, and across the street from his original cafe, he set up a storefront that's gorgeous, and he sells all home equipment. So some small single group espresso machines from different manufacturers. He sells different drip machines, pour over devices, filters, and he stocks like 15 to 20 roasters. And the whole place is essentially a showroom, use room. You can go in, you can brew your own coffee. He has a kitchen setup with like normal dimensions of cabinets. And so you can take the machine you're wanting to try, you put it in there, you see how it looks under a normal cabinet dimension, and you get to brew coffee. And then they also, it's also like a brew by the cup type of cafe. They don't want high traffic there. That's why they did it across the street from their cafe. If people just want a cap, they go across the street. But if they want to try a coffee from one of the 20 roasters they're featuring, if they want to try out a machine, they have that capability in that store. And I think that's a brilliant move. And I got to visit it before they opened. And I mean, I don't know why that's not more of a thing. I know it would be crazy successful in places like New York, Paris, Berlin, Frankfurt, London, Melbourne, Sydney, all these big cities like Bangkok and Tokyo and all these places. It would be incredibly successful. Even Johannesburg, there's a huge scene in South Africa. I mean, it would be crazy successful in any of these areas because so many people simply don't have, honestly, one of the most, I'm forgetting even like Philippines would be incredibly successful. The coffee enthusiast, shout out to Philippines, by the way. I have lots of good home enthusiast friends in the Philippines. One is actually the one who had me discover the ZP6. He sent me a ZP6 hand grinder, and now it's like one of the hottest hand grinders on the market. But Philippines, shout out to them. Their home enthusiast community is nuts. But yeah, so doing something like that, I think would be super helpful to the growth of more purchasing retail from cafes. So that's money cafes need. You're not going to get 5 pour overs a week from a home enthusiast. That's never going to happen. It never was going to happen. So you might as well get, some money on the profit margin from a retail box or retail bag.
I 100% agree. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your health journey. So you have recently gotten jacked, have to remove the doors and walk in sideways territory.
It's true. It's true.
What sparked your health journey?
I mean, so growing up, I've always been around, it's hard. I've always, with ADHD, neurodivergency, I've always gotten overweight, gotten thinner, gotten overweight, gotten thinner, and I can bounce back and forth between 20 and 40 pounds in a single year without doing anything special. So I was, I would say, I had gotten down to like where I am now right before COVID hit. Then COVID hit and I gained a lot of weight back, and then I lost some of it and then gained it back even more. And I don't know. I last May, I believe it was, I got reached out to by a sponsor that is essentially a workout thing. And I used to work out all the time. Like I used to be as like jacked as I look, not to sound cocky, but as jacked as I look, I'm still not as strong as I was at my strongest, which was when I was like 2021. I was a gym junkie. I'd go 2-3 hours a day because my testosterone was through the roof as a 20-year-old. But so I got reached out by this brand, and so I started going to the gym just because it was a good brand deal, and I was like, and it'll force me to get in the gym, which I've been needing to do, and it's just been hard with all the travel and the work and everything. So I started going to the gym lightly, using the app. And then like a month later, there was some issues. I went to the doctor. She was kind of concerned about some heart stuff. They did an EKG. They had me like run shirtless with like all these freaking electrodes on my chest. And then they sent me in for like a tracheotomy, and they sent me in for like some other otomies. And I was like, oh my God, am I dying? And anyway, so that gave me like I like I said, I do have 2 kids, and it was just made me like, oh my God, I've not been really paying attention to my health at all. Life just kind of consumes you. And, when you travel, it's just so much easier to go to eat with everyone. And then you see the delicious food that these different areas of the world have to offer, and you want to overindulge. And, a very easy way to like I said, with ADHD, it's very easy to overindulge into binge eat, and I'm very professional at binge eating. You wouldn't believe it.
Oh no, I would. I'm with you.
Dude. And so, I mean, I could put on so much weight. So I got up to like 275 pounds, which is 125 kilos. And then I was like, oh snap. So I reached out to after I had the like kind of heart scare or whatever, which I'd had sort of a heart scare a few years ago where they did an EKG on me, but it was fine. And then they did it again, and I was like, uh-oh, what if it's not fine this time? So anyway, turned out being fine, but it kind of, you know, put a fire on my butt. And I saw the YouTuber Joshua Weissman had recently lost a ton of weight. He's like this big chef YouTuber. And I watched his video about his transformation, and he had posted who his coach was on his video. And I pulled out Instagram. I found his coach and I DM'd him. And literally my first DM to him was, hey, Joshua Weissman me, baby. And he responded laughing. And I started work with him in September. He put me on a specific eating regimen, a workout regimen, and I just followed it to a T. And you know, 6 months in, I'd lost 25 kilos, about 50 pounds, 55 pounds. And honestly, the last few months, I've not really done much as far as super strict, but I've not gained any. I've not really lost any either. I like, which is probably good. I've been working with this other guy named Charlton Banks, who's an IFBB pro, big bodybuilder guy, but also as a coach. And I was talking with him, and he's like, actually, it's probably good to take a break. To know it's very easy to lose weight super quickly. But when you do that, you tend to put it back on quickly. He was like, it's probably good because that you've taken a break, because now you kind of understand how your body works, what you need to keep it where it's at before you go on another cut. So I was kind of taking a break from it, you know, still working out. I go and do lots of cardio every day, but I haven't really been super locked into specific caloric deficits. I've not really been super worried about it lately. So I'm still sitting at about 100 kilos, about 220-ish pounds. And at some point, I'll probably go on another cut. But it, you know, 6 months of like these specific 5 meals a day. I was eating lots of chicken and rice and broccoli, and you know, it was pretty miserable. But you know, it was great.
I'm the exact same as you though. Like I went traveling to Dubai this year, and it kickstarted one of the worst, you know, eating phases of my life, because at the beginning of, well, maybe 2 years ago, I was 71 kilos, and now I'm like 90. So like I definitely go on those big binges as well. But I think in the context of like, I was interviewing someone named Orlando Marzo a few months ago. So he's the world bartending champion from a few years ago. Really, really interesting guy. But when I was researching for that, I was looking at the bartenders sort of association's website, and they really promote bartenders maintaining their health. And it's like, I don't think that's something we do in coffee enough. Can you mentioned before, like the barista that's got to work 8 or 9 hours a day. Like it's a tough slog if you're not looking after your body, you're not eating the right foods that won't put you in a good mental state, so you're not getting the right amount of sleep. I actually think coffee professionals and coffee associations, we need to promote health within our industry a bit more, because it's so important to performing highly at your job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to be clear. It wasn't necessarily that, like, I don't want people to hear me talking about my health and seeing it as, oh, I was fat, I needed to get skinny, because that's not what it was. I was unhealthy at the state I was, and my health has, for my body, my health has increased due to not just weight loss, but honestly, it could just be because I'm eating healthier. Due to my healthier eating, I'm sleeping better. Due to my sleeping better, I'm functioning better. Due to my functioning better, I have better mental health, mental clarity. And so it's all kind of related, but the big thing for health is definitely sleep. Sleep's the number one thing in the world. I struggle with insomnia for forever. And working in coffee, it's even worse because you're drinking caffeine past when you should. And even when people say, caffeine doesn't affect me, that's BS. You're not special. You may not feel it, but it will affect your REM cycle. If you track your sleep, you do sleep studies after drinking coffee at midnight or something, or drink coffee at 6 p.m., your REM will be affected than compared to a night where you get good sleep, where you didn't drink coffee past 2 p.m. or whatever. So good sleep is such a huge thing that a lot of baristas don't get. They're drinking coffee in the morning, then drinking alcohol at night, or whatever it might be. If they go out and hang out with friends, or they're eating really late because they did a closing shift. They're eating really late, and so they don't have a settled stomach, and they have to do an open, the dreaded close open shift, which I hated. I did a lot though. So yeah, I mean, health is a huge thing, but that's in every aspect ever. But you know, it's hard because we expect people, and I know Australia baristas make great wages, but around the world, it's not so great. I know many people across Europe that make way less than like 800 euros a month as a barista, and so like health is also an expenditure that is difficult to afford unless you're very, 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 very skilled at, you know, budgeting and ensuring you're getting the right things and having time to food prep with cheaper ingredients and buying things in bulk and being able to foresee. So it is a difficult thing, and I want to empathize with that. I have been privileged to. My wife is a registered dietitian, and she helps me prep my meals. She does a lot of the stuff for me so that I can kind of just heat up food and eat. So there are people out there who may not have someone that helps them and doesn't have the time to do all this. And it is difficult, but it's also not ever talked about. You know, people talk about mental health, but they don't talk about eating more healthy. Again, this is not a question of fat or skinny. It's a question of putting things in your body that help your body perform better. Doesn't matter if you're 125 kilos or 76 kilos. It matters on what's going in your body. So yeah.
That's a good segue into what I wanted to talk to you about next, which is golf.
Yeah.
And you know, I think golf is one of the most socially healthy sports you can ever play. Like, what I don't get to play it much in Melbourne because like I don't have many friends that play golf here. But when I go, I'm from Sydney, so when I go back home to Sydney, it's about 2 hours north of Sydney, a place called the Central Coast, small sort of beach community. But there's lots of really nice golf courses there. And whenever I go, I always play golf with my friends. And I'm absolutely terrible at it. But like walking around or driving on the buggy and like in the sun, the few things beat it. And obviously you've just started your own golfing channel separate to your coffee stuff. So I understand your motivations for doing it, but how are you enjoying it? How does it feel to... Did you feel like, like I really love doing coffee, but you don't want to fall out of love with it, so you wanted to have something extra, or you just, I'm going to be doing this anyway?
No, it was, so I grew up playing golf. I never was like super into it. My dad was a collegiate golfer, grew up playing golf, but I also played like 5 other sports. So I was never a year-round golfer. I never worked on it that much. It's when it was golf season, all right, I'll golf. Then it was football season. Then it was soccer season. Then it was basketball season, tennis season, you know, so baseball season, I played so many sports. So I never got like incredible at golf, but I always enjoyed it. And my dad loved it so much. My grandfather was really good at it. And we went on, you know, we'd go play golf quite a bit. So, but since leaving for college, I just left my clubs at home, and I believe they're all rusted now. They're probably sitting in the garage rusted to crap. They've been sitting there for 17 years, whatever. So, you know, neurodivergent, very ADHD. I hyper-focus, hyper-fixate. And a lot of times it's based off of a YouTube video. I saw a YouTube video of Phil Mickelson playing with this like YouTube golf guy. And, you know, growing up, I watched Phil Mickelson, watched Tiger Woods in their primes. That was like when I was actually watching golf. And seeing him, you know, playing great and talking smack with this like random YouTube guy, I was like, dang, that was fun. Now I want to watch another YouTube golf video with Phil Mickelson. So I was like looking for other ones just because Phil is like the king of smack talk. And it was very funny. And I thought, you know, I kind of miss golf. And I went to this bar in town that opened up, and they have golf simulators in the back. My wife and I went on a little, you know, afternoon drink ski, and I hit balls for like an hour. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. And so after she went to bed that night, they were open late, Sir Bar. I went back at like 10 p.m. And hit another hour of balls. And I was like, oh my God, I'm obsessed. So then I started going there and hitting balls. And a week later, as I kept watching golf YouTube, I thought, you know, it'd be pretty fun and relatable to make a little YouTube. The one of the owners of the simulator place studied commercial photography and knows how to do videography. So I asked him if he wanted to film some rounds, and he was like, yeah. And I said, cool. I also know that I have a few like pro golfers that follow my coffee content. And I thought, oh, it'd be a cool opportunity to like, you know, go play some golf with them, maybe see some cool courses, etc. Now, I do want to get out in front of criticism here. It is true that golf's not the most sustainable thing in the world. That's low-hanging fruit. Yes, it is. There's a lot of water wastage. It's not a super sustainable sport. Less sustainable than F1, less sustainable than most anything but horse racing. But there are just like in everything, there are more and less sustainable ways of doing it. There are courses that focus on that, but majority don't. So I do want to say I'm aware of the issue, but I feel like people are quick to point that finger and forget that they're listening to a coffee podcast. And coffee is one of the most widely drunk beverages on the planet and is horrible for the environment with the transportation costs, the roasting, all of the pollution that it puts off.
But to that end, to abate climate change, do we really have to sacrifice all of these things that we love?
Exactly. Well, that's my point. That's my point. Is not stop drinking coffee, but like there have been some people that have been quick to point the finger that I'm waging a class war on climate or something because I play golf. And it's like, you're a coffee fanatic. You're also waging a war on. You drive a car that's gasoline propelled. Wait, you drive a battery car, lithium. Good luck getting rid of the lithium. It's like there are these things every day that we're facing, and some are worse than others. True, but it's kind of like like I know vegans who are fans of F1, and I'm like, why are you a vegan? Environmental reasons. F1 is pretty bad for the environment because you're pushing people to race cars, which burns up oils. But anyway, the only point of saying that is. I'm not unaware of the environmental impact golf has, but just like in every other agricultural field, there are movements to make it a more sustainable type thing with reusing of water and different things like that. But anyway, just one of the things I just felt the need to kind of address that I am aware of it, and it sucks. I do hope it improves, but at the moment, it's yeah. I mean, I still eat meat. Would it be better environmentally if I didn't? Probably. But I still eat meat, and that's just maybe you can call that a character flaw. But we do what we do to survive. And
what's the? I don't even know what the number one emitter of CO2 emissions or anything even is. One of my things that I really studied a lot in university was climate policy, and I feel like a lot of this needs to be led by our governments and stuff like that. But the world's gone backwards on it. The world's gone backwards on it in the last few years. Trump exiting the Paris Agreement. In Australia, we've got particularly bad issues with like power generation, and because there's been such bad conflict, they haven't actually built the renewable energy, I guess, generation that's needed. So now there's like a massive energy source shortage, and we can't generate enough power. The power bills have gone so sky high, and we got the most coal and uranium in the world, and so it's just kind of like this bizarre situation. But
well, it's a good thing there's power under the pyramids, right?
Yeah, well, these energon sources, but in a strange way, I feel like maybe this is because the need for power in AI is so high. It concerns me a little bit, but it's also like, could they find a solution out of greed for a lot of this? It's like, we need so much power because it's going to make it, and we need to figure it out fast because it's going to make so much money. Could they come up with a solution that's like, I don't subscribe to trickle down economics at all, but maybe there's a trickle down effect from that benefits society. I don't know, but I hope so.
I mean, I'm so out of my pay wage. I just wanted to say that I am aware of the sustainability issue, and I don't know any type of solution with these things. I enjoy playing golf. It gets me outside. People keep commenting on my tan, and it's because I never really go outside very much because I'm cloistered in here testing stuff, or I'm working on a laptop, or I'm in an airplane or something. And so it gets me outside, gets me moving, gets me actually talking with people. I don't hang out with people very often. And so it's a very good thing for me. And, I enjoy it. I am excited about the contacts I've already made in the golf world, and excited to bring some fun content. But also one of my big things, and that one of the big reasons I did it is because one of my biggest desires with my coffee YouTube is to bring more people to specialty coffee. And that's been what I've talked about so many times on my main YouTube. And I think there's a huge overlap with golfers and drinking coffee. I know there is. And so to be able to, in every video I brew coffee and I discuss it on a pretty in-depth level, discussing what I'm doing. So every video I brew coffee, and I will also, I have big plans with it as well for coffee style videos, with golf pros who drink a lot of coffee. But so the idea is to make people aware of this, this other niche, because, if you're in the golfing niche, you're a niche type person, and you might as well jump into coffee as well. So there's some kind of big name people in the golf world that are really into coffee that I'm talking with about doing videos with, and hopefully bringing this idea of, specialty coffee and what we're doing in this weird rabbit hole to more people. So that's kind of always my thing. When I was talking to Pepe Hihon from Pica Soledad about, he said, "Brother, can you make like 10 other YouTubes of you doing random stuff to bring more people to coffee?" I was like, man, I don't got time for that.
Well, this is the thing. Like, and I made a video last night about the best of Panama auction that's coming up and why I think that to fill everyone in, Hacienda La Esmeralda, it's probably like the most storied coffee farm in all of coffee.
Oh yeah,
they won the Triple Crown at the best of Panama. So they're the best washed geisha, the best natural geisha, the best Lorena, best varietals category, which they used a Lorena for. And I think it's going to go their wash lot, which scored 98 points. I don't know if there's ever been a coffee that scored that high.
no.
I think it'll go for $20,000 US per kilo. The current record's 13,000. I think it'll go for 20 above, because obviously the quality is so high. I feel like the brand recognition is so strong. But to what you just said, the demand for coffee globally has never been higher. Like people just can't get enough of this stuff. I mean, I see some people write that like, matcha is overtaking coffee. It's like, oh well, no, not really. Like the coffee is drunk enormously worldwide, and for those reasons, I feel like that record's just going to get absolutely shattered. I don't know. It's probably not something that you delve into a lot, but do you agree?
Oh yeah, I mean it's the records. I will say I feel like that's a little disconnected from the reality of the normie coffee consumer. There's definitely infighting in the coffee buying world of who can buy the most expensive. There's a lot of that in different cultures around the world of having the best, and at any cost it's worth it. Because like I love Esmeralda. That's some of my favorite coffee ever. I've been still sipping almost daily Tumaco Geisha that we bought a decent amount of in Onyx EU. But there is no way there will ever be a coffee made that's worth 20,000 a kilo. There just isn't. That's a ridiculous price, and that's not due to a higher demand globally. It's due to a higher demand competitively of who's going to get the most expensive coffee. We want to have that. Oh, it's a 98. I must have it. Yeah, 20 grand. Yeah, these are high ballers that are kind of just pushing against each other every year, making coffee obscenely expensive, but only in a certain area. Like your normal enthusiast isn't even going to hear about that. It's not going to touch them. It's not going to trickle down and hit them at all. So. It's just a few farms that are benefiting from that. I would much prefer that lot get 1,000 a kilo, and then they spread the other 19,000 a kilo to other ones getting 5 a kilo. So, I mean, it's interesting. I'm just not a huge fan of, crazy amounts like that going to like these famous farms, because I'm sure there are coffees out there that are almost, if not just as good, that are going for eight a kilo or 15 a kilo, and there should be more attention paid to those. But, whenever someone has the capability to run a social media, when they have the capability of upkeeping it, speaking English, all these things, they had a heads up on the competition when it comes to these big international auction systems.
Well,
so
that's how a lot of these Panama producers operate. Like they're at trade shows promoting their coffee abroad. Like this, it's not accidental. Like they position themselves to be able to sell their coffee like 100%. This. And it is among the best of the best. So
sure. So, well, and they've been, Esmeralda has been doing it for over 20 years, right? They've been doing Geisha and selling it for high prices. They were the original high price over 20 years ago. So it's there's a history there, no doubt, and there's shared knowledge among. It's just a difficult thing to talk about because. You have these crazy prices going to the same farms like every year, and then you have all these other incredible farms of similarly hardworking people with fantastic coffees that are getting same prices as now commodity coffee. And so whenever I hear these, I get like depressed when I hear these huge numbers.
Well, this is where I feel like the new CVA system is actually a good thing, because we value so much quantifying coffee as a score. And like when I want to assess the quality of something, being able to quantify it is definitely important. But this is where I think this new coffee value assessment actually is good, because if you're a 90-point Panama Geisha compared to a 90-point Burundi, like people are always going to go for the 90-point Geisha. But if you're talking about flavors and like, if a lot of people cup the two coffees next to each other blind, then they might go for the 90-point Burundi, but it doesn't have that brand status. I feel like even though you could separate it and say Panama, Burundi, but when you put Panama 90 point, Burundi 90 point, I think even among coffee professionals, most people will just go to the Panama, which is kind of
Yeah,
where
100%.
I feel like having this system where we detach ourselves from scores might be a good thing, but whether or not I
Yeah.
think that works in reality, it remains to be seen.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Um, Look, Lance, I think I'll wrap it up here. I do have to give a shout out to my sponsor. So my sponsor, not Lance's sponsor, which is Time More grinders. So if you need a hand grinder, if you want an electric grinder, if you want some kettles and scales, whatever you need, brewers, you can do it affordably and at a very high quality with Time More. So that's timemore.com or visit your local distributor. Lance, thanks so much for coming on. I know it's like probably 11:30 p.m. right now where you are, so you've been very
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've been very, very generous with your time. It's a bit of a dream come true for me to do this interview. So thanks again. And hey, if you have anything you want to sign off with, now's the time.
Well, first, I do want to say I was a pain in the A for you to get on. I am terrible at emails. I'm terrible at everything, and it took forever. But you came through with that secondhand serenade ad lib, and I had to respond with my own, and that's what kind of tied me down. I just needed that. I need that Hail Mary in your face. All right, baby, we're gonna go with some pop punk. No, so I was very annoying to get on, but I'm glad you pushed me and got the time settled down. You just kind of sent the Google invite. And you're like, screw it, we're doing it, baby, and that was awesome.
Well,
so
this is the thing. I harass people like until you say no. Until you say no, I think there's a chance for yes. So
and I would never say no. I'm terrified of commitment, and so you're like, well, ask for a date, and I just would ignore because I hate committing. And so when you sent but I don't want to tell you to choose a date because that's committing, right? So when you just sent a date, I was like, all right, bet we can make it out. We can make it work. We can make it work. But yeah, and anyway, no. So I want people to know that the number one thing is to enjoy your coffee. And the number one way to do that is by buying better coffee. You may say, well, what does that mean? Well, that is a very difficult question to answer. I wish there was a better way to quantify that. But trying to support roasters that are trying their best to support producers who are trying their best to support Mother Earth. And hopefully there'll be more resources that come out about that. Some of the funded projects that were working towards that have been shut down, sadly, but you can always get on these different Discords and you can track with the transparency pledge, see who's being transparent with their pricing. You can, Google is a good tool. So, but yeah, always know you don't need to immediately buy a new grinder, a new pour over brewer, a new whatever. Buying better coffee, and I know Kirk will agree, is the number one way to improve your coffee. Go out there, get some good coffee, and brew something tasty.
Shop local, think global.
Baby.
All right. Well, that just about wraps it up. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm going to press stop the recording, but just stick around for like 30 seconds, if you will, Lance.
Yep.
Goodbye, everyone. Ta-ta and goodbye.